what is your management style, and what type of employees do well in working with you? This is the one question that I found super interesting while reading a Forbes article recently, and the reason why I wanted to allocate an entire video for this is simply because these questions can actually make a difference in a job interview. The first thing you should keep in mind is that you're often applying for 0.01% best paid jobs in the world, so the difference is always in the details, and you can look up statistics on the internet, and I can tell you from my experience, this is very important. And the second scenario where you would want to have such a question in your arsenal is as a backup. For example, if your session with the bar raiser didn't go as planned, you could keep this one question, you know, to raise your level a little bit. Now, if we look at the question itself, it's actually two questions. The first part, what's your management style? Truth be said, you cannot ask this question to a recruiter, but rather to someone who will be part of the management of in your future team, or someone who knows very well about these things. And the reason why you would want to ask these questions to them is because you would expect them to develop on this a bit more. I mean, and of course you aren't expecting them to tell you, hey, I'm a micromanager. So you would want to let them speak for a while, and when you let them speak, you cannot make mistakes. And that would be the obvious advantage, but also to learn more, get more intel about the job. Now, if we look at the second part of the question, what type of employee does well here, the main reason, the main benefit of such a question is because you show them that you really care about the role that you're applying for. And even more interestingly, interviewers like people who want to understand the business that they are into. I would always encourage you to not prepare good enough answers or good enough questions in this case, but the best possible questions for them and the best possible answers to any questions they might ask you. Now, before I go, I also wanted to comment a little bit on a certain trend that I spotted in the comments on my YouTube channel, saying basically that people saying that, hey Dan, my interview went great. I thought I gave very concise, very short answers, but still they rejected me. And I wanted to develop on this a little bit more in 1 minute. If you feel like the interview goes well, it doesn't mean that the interview went well. So especially with behavioral interviews, they are often designed so they make you feel comfortable, because when you're comfortable, you tend to give away more information. That's a well-known trick that HR people do. And the second point that I have here, if your answers are concise and short, it doesn't mean your answers are great. So what makes an answer great is primarily the story that you're trying to communicate. If the story is great, then yes, you might have a chance to communicate it properly and efficiently and concisely. But if your story isn't great, then you cannot do much about it. So unless you're applying for a super senior role, level 7 or 8, or I don't believe it makes sense to think like, hey, my answer should be concise. I think you should think like my answers should be the best possible stories that I have, communicated as good as possible. Right? So this is what makes the difference. So by the way, I very much appreciate to everyone leaving comments with their interview experience on my videos, and please keep on sharing so I can also keep sharing my opinions about these things, which I hope you found useful. Thank you.